Hey everyone, it's Anna, and today I am very excited because I finally am sharing something that is somewhat reminiscent of a wrap-up. I just wanted to put something out where I just talk about all the books that meant the most to me this year, ones that I genuinely think I will reread, books that mean a lot to me. I have 10 books here that I consider to be my top books of 2019. And I'm really excited to share them with you guys, so without further ado, let's get started. So if you saw my reading vlog where I listened to 7 audiobooks in 7 days, I briefly mentioned that I had recently finished Turtles All the Way Down by John Green, and I really enjoyed it. So I picked this up back in August, and I had picked it up at a time where I was in a really rough patch with my mental health. Whenever I'm in a rough place mentally, I tend to gravitate towards books that will either distract me from what I'm feeling or validate how I'm feeling and put into words things that I don't know how to describe myself. And with this book, I felt like John Green really did that for me. If you're not familiar with this book, we follow a high schooler named Asa who has OCD and anxiety, and the basic, even though the plot is not a integral part of the book by any means, it really doesn't have much of a plot. It's very much so just focused on Asa, how she struggles with her mental health with OCD. I don't have OCD, I can't speak to the representation of it, but I do know that John Green himself has OCD, and he was writing from his experiences, and he also has anxiety. But what really hit home for me was the rep of anxiety, and just it was able to put into words things that I really genuinely could not articulate. It was amazing and validating and refreshing to read about someone who struggles with similar things that I struggle with. This was actually also the first book that I annotated, and it just naturally sort of happened. I didn't plan to annotate it, and I just started reading it and feeling like I could really resonate personally with Asa. So I just naturally grabbed the tabs and I started just making note of everything that I strongly connected with. This was the end result, and it just really enforced that annotation is something that I want to do, and it's something that really helps me. And now when I just want to look back on the quotes and just all the parts of the book that really personally struck me, I can just look back on it, and I really like having these quotes really easy to access. I just really enjoyed it, and I cannot recommend it enough. I will say though, again, it doesn't have a plot. It says it's about a girl who is investigating the disappearance of a billionaire. The driving force of this book is truly just being inside of Asa's head and understanding what she's going through and how she thinks, and it was just spot on. And I will also say though that it can be very intense at times, and it almost got to a point for me where I felt kind of overwhelmed and I had to put it down because there was just a lot of intrusive thoughts that you are experiencing sort of with her, so I would just be careful going into it. The next book is one that I picked up just on a whim, and I listened to it on audiobook, and then I really enjoyed it, so I got my own physical copy of it, and I really enjoyed it. I really want to reread it, and I definitely found an author that I'm really excited to read more from, and that is Don't Date Ros Santos by Nina Moreno. In this book, we follow a Cuban-American girl named Rosa who lives with her grandmother and her mother in this little town called Port Coral in Florida. Rosa's family is presumably cursed by the sea, and every man that comes into their life perishes at sea, and Rosa ends up falling for a boy with a boat. So there's some conflict that arises surrounding that, and it's just really cute and summery and adorable and romantic, and just something that was very lighthearted, but it also had a lot more depth to it than I was expecting. I love the community aspect of it. She lives in this really tight-knit small town and everyone knows everyone. It's just one big family, and I loved the nuances of the relationship that Rosa has with her mother and with her grandmother, and we also explore the relationship that they have with each other. It talks about intergenerational grief, diaspora. It talks about so many things, and I'm not Cuban, so I can't like really say too much, but being Latina, I still felt a connection to it, and I loved it so much. Her grandmother is very strong-willed, and she's funny. Her family is bilingual, and I loved the way Spanish and English are used interchangeably, and I honestly think this is the first book that I've read where Spanish wasn't italicized. You could still, like, if you don't speak Spanish, you can still understand what's being said, and the context is very clear, and I just honestly wish this was something that I picked up in high school, because Rosa in this book is a senior and she's struggling with wanting to move away to Cuba for university, but just like the conflict that she has within herself of wanting to move away and see the world and just branch outside of the comfort of home and her family, or staying close to what she knows and being close to her family and going to university within the state was something that I could really, really relate to. I struggled a lot my senior year with not knowing what I wanted to do with my life and not knowing where I wanted to go to school. I had a lot more questions than answers, and I feel like the conversations that Rosa has with her family, with a counselor, talking about what she wants to do with her life, how she's going to make these decisions, was something that I really, really wish I could, like, go back and show myself. Even though like I'm beyond that now, I still felt a very personal connection to it, and I'm glad that I read it when I did. It was just a delight to read, and I absolutely loved it, and the romance is really cute, and it's just a really adorable book that I love so much, and I will definitely reread it in the future, and I cannot be more excited for Nina Moreno's next book, in Port Coral. I'm so happy to be back there. Yeah, I just really enjoyed it, and you should definitely pick it up if you haven't already. The next book on my list is Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Honestly, everything about this book is phenomenal. I absolutely loved it. The characters, the music, the relationships, the frickin' audiobook narrators. Definitely the best audiobook I've ever listened to. The full cast audiobook is just absolutely amazing, and I cannot wait to reread it. I have my copy here that I got spray painted. I already started to annotate it and I stopped, but I'm definitely going to reread it next year, and I'm going to finish this up. And then there's going to be a rainbow of tabs right there. I probably am, I'm not going to enjoy it as much, so maybe I'll read along with the audiobook so I get the full experience. If you are not familiar with it, this is an adult historical fiction novel. It's basically like a transcript of a documentary. And we're being told the story of this band that was at the height of their popularity in the 70s called The Six, and their lead woman, Daisy Jones. They mysteriously broke up, and no one really knows why they broke up. So in this series of interviews with each of the people in the band and people that worked for the band and knew the band members, we slowly unravel the secrets of this band and how they got together and what was happening behind the scenes and what happened at their concerts and just everything that led up to their eventual breakup. I cannot wait to see the show. I cannot wait to hear the music. It's going to be amazing, and I just cannot be more excited for it. Honestly, this was just like the year for me with adult books, because the next one is also an adult book, and my next favorite is one that I annotated through and through, and I really, really enjoyed it, and that was Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. It's a floppy paperback, and I was hesitant to annotate a paperback. Have the tabs sticking out all the way. I feel like this is something that people really don't do because they can easily get crushed, and in retrospect, I probably shouldn't have done it this way. But I also kind of don't have any regrets because I don't know, this is just really satisfying. You hear that? So in this book, we follow the first son of the United States, Alex, and the Prince of England, Henry, and These two do not like each other. There is a whole controversy surrounding them not liking each other. And they have to do some PR damage control and convince the public that they are actually friends. And they have to go and do a bunch of stuff together to prove that they get along. So they do all this stuff and they start to realize that they have misunderstood each other and they become friends, and then from there it develops into a relationship, and I really enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun with it. Alex is biracial, he's Mexican-American, he's half white. His mom is the first female president, and this takes place in an alternate 2016. I loved the plot, I loved the characters, I loved the humor, I loved the political intrigue within it, and the way American politics is talked about isn't anything too convoluted, and it was understandable and it was easy to follow. I will say though that it definitely leans towards stereotypes of royals being very secluded and not really knowing much about the outside world. Overall, it was just a very lighthearted, hilarious, and very entertaining read with a beautiful, well-developed relationship at the forefront. It was definitely a great introduction to adult romance. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. I see myself rereading it in the future. The next one on my favorites list is part of a series, but I have to say this one is definitely my favorite in the series, and I'm very excited to see what's in store for the rest of the series. And that is the Wayward Children series, with the first book, Every Heart a Doorway, being my favorite of the series and one of my favorite books of the year. I cannot get enough of it, honestly. I picked it up at a time where I just wanted to read everything in sight. I was going through a very rough time at the beginning of the year, and I needed every distraction possible, and this was a very delightful distraction. In this series, we follow a bunch of children who have stumbled upon portals to other worlds, and they disappear into these worlds and they go on all these adventures, and then sometimes they return home and they are having a lot of problems readjusting to the real world. All the children who return to their families want to go back to the world that they have discovered, but their parents want to keep them grounded in their reality, so they send them to Eleanor West School for Wayward Children. So all the children in this school have been to other worlds. It's the most whimsical story, and Shannon McGuire has such a gorgeous writing style. It gave me all of the vibes of the stories I grew up reading. It gives me just all of these like eerie, creepy vibes, but it's also very whimsical. I think it also has a air of Alice in Wonderland, so if you like that, you will probably like this. There's a lot of nonsensical aspects of it, the way that the magic system works and the alternate worlds work. Despite all the things that are a little twisted about it and may or may not make sense, it's still very endearing, and I really enjoyed following these characters. They're definitely not the most developed characters. It's a series of, I'm assuming they're novellas, and they're very short, but they are very plot driven, they are full of adventure, and they're just so much fun to read. They're so easy to escape into and to completely be immersed in. The thought of seeing it hopefully someday as a TV show makes me very excited, and I cannot wait to read more in this world. I absolutely love these characters, and I love the worlds that they are interacting with, and we get to see different characters and get to see their backstories in different books, and it's just amazing. And this one has a murder mystery aspect that I really loved. So yeah, I could go on and on about how much I love the series, but I'm gonna stop here. The next book on my favorites list is one that I actually did a reading vlog for, and that's just honestly one of my favorite videos that I've ever made, because I not only discovered a new author that I really enjoy reading, but I had the time of my life reading it. I fell in love with the characters very quickly. It was something that I could connect with personally. It was something that I can just like reread over and over again and just love even more and more every time I read it. And that is Radio Silence by Alice Oseman. Kat from Paperback Dreams is succeeding in like emotionally ruining me with every book recommendation of hers that I pick up. I am like struggling right now to like talk about how much I love it because there's so much that I love about it, and I've already said so much in other videos, but basically I love the characters. I love Aled and Francis's friendship is the purest thing I've ever read. There needs to be more YA books with a central focus on boy-girl platonic relationships. I feel like the closer I get to talking about like my top tier favorite books, I'm going to become more and more incoherent because I don't know how to put into words all of the emotions I felt reading them. But yeah, basically I love the characters. I love the conversations about education and about not letting other people define you and what you want to become, and I love the conversations around the stress of moving on from high school and doing the right thing with your life and doing very particular things with your life. Sorry for the harsh lighting change. Anyways, yeah, this book was just reassurance that it's okay to change your mind about what you want to pursue in life. Everything about this book is just so needed for teenagers to hear, for people in high school to hear. I loved the way it commented on fandom culture and the relationship between Frances and her mom. There's so much diversity. You have characters of color. There's a lot of representation of different sexuality. It's just a beautiful story of two nerds making a podcast together. It was so amazing, and I will 1000% pick up anything that Alice Oseman writes. The next book was one that I was not planning on reading until Tate from Bookish Constellation sent it to me for my birthday, and I'm so glad I picked this book up, and that is Sanal and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe by Benjamin Alarisanz. In this book, we follow two Mexican-American boys living in Texas in the 80s. Over the summer, they meet and become fast friends. It's just a sort of coming-of-age story about these two boys and their friendship. I love these two so much. Dante is so wholesome and just so sensitive and thoughtful and genuine. And Aristotle was what really got me because he and I really think a lot alike, and that really threw me off more than any character that I've ever encountered. I genuinely feel like Aristotle and I are on the same wavelength, and there are so many moments in here where he's thinking things that I have thought, like word for word. Made me even a little bit emotional at times because we get each other. I don't know how to describe it. We just get each other. Both of them are Mexican American, and I love the conversations they have about that and about how they don't always feel as connected to their culture and they don't always feel Mexican enough. So I'm editing now, and I'm realizing that somehow I either lost some footage of me talking more about this book, or maybe my battery died. Yeah, I guess all I really want to add in is just that I loved the writing style so much. It's so lyrical and beautiful. It's just like kind of like another part of why I loved Aristotle so much, because the book's from his point of view. Aristotle and Dante are also like coming to terms with their sexuality and exploring their sexuality. Their families are so supportive. Their relationships with their family are beautiful. I loved the conversations that they had with each other's families, and it's so wholesome, and there's just so much to love about this book. And yeah, there's just so many ways in which I related and connected to this book, and it made me very happy. And so that's kind of all I have to say in terms of stuff I wanted to add. It's a different day, and I'm wearing the same sweatshirt, which was actually unintentional, but guess it works. We're down to the last two, or I guess the last three, depending on how you look at it. But the next book that I really loved in 2019 was Heartstopper, and this is volume 1, but also I feel like I can't really like pick a favorite, so I'm also throwing in volume 2. About a month ago, I think, I posted a vlog where I read these and I absolutely love them so much. If you're not familiar with it, it's a graphic novel series that follows 2 teenage boys, Nick and Charlie, who are attending the same school. And they meet in class one day and they develop a friendship, and over time that develops into a relationship. But it doesn't shy away from very serious themes with mental health, with coming out. I was in tears in the second volume. It was just so fun and so easy to get through, and you just fall in love with Nick and Charlie very, very quickly, and I love the artwork. If you want to hear a little bit more of my thoughts on this series and just like see what it was like for me when I first read them, I'll link down below the vlog in which I read these, and I can't wait to see what's ahead for Nick and Charlie and everyone else in their gang. And now we are into the last book, the one that is going to surprise absolutely no one, the one that I've talked about nonstop, the one that I probably mention in every video, the one that came to me at the perfect time in my life, and the one that forever left an impression on me, and the one that means the most to me. And the main character she'll just like forever stay with me because she's an icon. And that book, of course, is The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is unquestionably one of my favorite books of all time. It's so amazing. It is so I really just like can't properly articulate the way I feel about it. And I don't think I'll ever truly be able to do that, but I'm going to try. If you're not familiar with this book, it's about a journalist named Monique who is given the opportunity to interview a movie star, Evelyn Hugo, who has been completely out of the public's eye for a while. She hasn't done any interviews. No one really knows what happened to her. And Monique gets the opportunity to interview her. It's such a huge deal, and no one really understands like why Monique in particular was chosen, because Evelyn only wanted her to be the one to interview her. But then when Monique goes to meet Evelyn for the interview, she finds out that she doesn't want to be interviewed for the magazine. She actually wants Monique to be the author of her authorized biography, and Evelyn wants it to be published after she dies. And as suggested by the title, perhaps the most mysterious thing about Evelyn is that she was married 7 times, and no one really knows what happened with those relationships. And she's about to reveal everything that happened with those relationships and who her true love is, and everything about her life and why she stepped out of the spotlight. Evelyn is just a phenomenal, phenomenal character. So dynamic and so realistic, and just jumps off the page, and you could just swear that she's a real person, but she's not, and it breaks your heart. But she was just a phenomenal person to read about, and even though you're not gonna probably agree with everything that she does in her life and some of the decisions she makes, you still want the best for her, and you can still understand where she's coming from, even if you don't agree with it. And she's just so cunning and so morally ambiguous, and just a textbook Slytherin. And on a personal level, she just articulates feelings that I've had so well. Especially at the time that I read this, I was going through a very difficult time. I was going through a loss, and I was just sort of processing my grief, and it was like my first time dealing with a close loss. The way that Evelyn articulated her own experiences with grief was just so spot on and so in line with how I was feeling at that time. And this book and Evelyn herself were just a huge comfort for me at that time. This book is just like one of those books that I feel like I can pick up at different stages of my life and gain something new from, and just like certain things will stand out to me more as I grow older. There's just so much about this book that I love, and I just kind of want to leave it at that. I love it so much, and nothing I read this year could have possibly topped it, no matter what, and this will just forever be one of my all-time favorites. And yeah, that's kind of all I have to say about it. It is phenomenal, and I don't think I mentioned it. It's a historical fiction, and it's set in the 50s and to the present day. This was incredibly disjointed, and I apologize. But yeah, this book is amazing, and I love it with all my heart, and it is unquestionably one of my all-time favorites and my top book of 2019. As I'm looking back at this footage, I'm probably going to change my mind about, like, the rankings of these books. So, like, I wouldn't take my rankings too seriously, but this one's unquestionably number one. That's the only one that's not going to change. And I can't wait to see what this video is going to look like in 2020. Or I guess 2021. Anyways, that is my 2019 favorites, my top books of last year. I kind of don't know how to close this out. Thank you guys for watching. Tell me what you read in 2019. Tell me what your favorites were. And if you agree with me on any of these, if any of these were your favorites, let me know. We can just rave about them. And that's all I gotta say. And I will see you soon in another video. Bye.